I'm stable, oh yeah, no label, oh yeah, you know me. I have only a past, I'm lonely, but damn, I'm going to win, yeah.
All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome out to a look behind the curtain with Chris. We are currently on episode 15 of season 2. Definitely getting into the episodes, and it's been a lot of fun. And as you may have noticed last week, I was traveling. I was at a 6-day personal growth and development event, and so I was not live. And this week we're back in the saddle, and I have a really, really awesome guest to share with you guys. He was actually at that event with me, and I got to know a lot more of his story and who he was, and really very, very excited to share this gentleman with the rest of the world, with everyone here watching, whether you're here live or here on the recording. If you are here live, definitely make sure that you're engaging in the comments. That's a huge part of what we do here. That's why I love doing it live. We get to hear your feedback, get to hear your takeaways, and answer any questions that you may have based on, who my guest may be and where their area of mastery is. And tonight, very, very excited because this gentleman's story is very inspirational. Certain pieces of it remind me very much of my own, and I'm very excited to share him with you guys and to kind of dive a little bit deeper into some of what's up. What is up, Michael? Good to see you, brother. Now, before we do dive into all that, we have a little bit of housekeeping we always have to go over, and so let's handle that and get it out of the way. First off, I'm using a piece of technology called StreamYard. It allows me to interact with you directly instead of just being a live conversation with myself and the guest. We actually get to see your name, interact with your comments, much like Michael here, who is an OVF member and one of our students over there. And it really does add level of engagement. So again, if you're here live, definitely drop in the comments, add your engagement, ask your questions. If you are here watching it on replay, definitely go down into the comments below and leave your questions there as well. We check all the comments. We have a social media team who handles the YouTube channel. They're on top of things, and they'll make sure that all of that gets relayed to me and that you're never just kind of getting lost in the midst of the social media. So wanted to share that with you guys. If you have not already subscribed to the channel and you're loving our content, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're dropping weekly live interviews and then also value drops as well coming very soon. The team actually just shared the very first edits of all of those with me today. And so I'm really excited for those to start coming out very, very soon here in the near future. And then there's always one last little bit of housekeeping we have to cover because this show would not be possible without our show sponsor, which is Operation Veteran Freedom, or as myself and all the other members call it, OVF. And more importantly, the OVF is a company and is a community who is established to help veterans better their lives post-military, anyone who serves, so first responders as well. But the number one thing that we want to share with you here today, and the reason that we are able to grow like we are, is we wrote a book called the DD214 Secrets, which is the fundamental 5 secrets every person who's transferring from service back to civilian world needs to master to ensure they can live a totally awesome and badass life once they are a civilian. And we give it away completely for free, the digital version, just the links in the descriptions. And again, you can go grab that. All we ask is for your email to deliver it to you. You can dive right in, learn those secrets for yourself. It is literally the first step all of our students take. And when we look at some of the millionaires and even billionaire that we've created in the last year under OVF, they give what they unlocked inside this book huge, huge credit for doing that. And again, we give it away for free for you guys to start on your journey. So go ahead, links in the description. So without further ado, all housekeeping aside, guys, I'm really, really excited to talk with our guest today. I first met this gentleman back a year ago next month at a very large mastermind. He had been part of this company and he was coming in to do this personal development event that my mentor and I were putting on. It's my mentor's company and I'm learning through him and getting to be a part of this amazing experience. And when I first met this gentleman, he immediately stood out. And as you guys are going to learn, he has the gift for gab just like I do. So this is going to be an awesome conversation. And I got to learn a little bit more about his story and how he was one of the first students for this company who ended up doing so well and showing up so big in his life, and that they actually brought him on as a paid employee of that company. We'll talk more about all of that as well here in just a little bit. I don't want to give away too much, so you guys might notice I'm trying to be delicate with my words. But he was a food service specialist inside the National Guard, so he's a veteran just like most of us on this call here tonight. He has 20 years in the management and leadership experience throughout all over the world, honestly. Europe, Asia, Philippines, Malaysia, every state besides Alaska. And so without me butchering any more of his bio, let me bring the man himself out to really share the insights and share his story with you guys. So do me a huge honor, do him a huge honor, and please welcome Mr. Jeff Montreuil to the show. What is up, brother?
Mr. Celeste, thanks for the intro, man. You didn't butcher it at all. That was great. And before we even get started, I would like to leave with some gratitude. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. I really appreciate you, getting to know you, and what you do for vets. I can't tell you how much it means to me and all vets that you've touched. So thanks a lot, man. It's really an honor to be here.
No, I appreciate you saying that. And guys, look at that. We're not even 2 seconds into talking to Jeff, and he already left you guys a huge breadcrumb to success. All things begin with gratitude, right? All things begin and end with gratitude. I love that, brother. And so before we dive into your current success, all the amazing things you're doing right now, let's hear a little bit about your backstory. Where do you come from? Well, were you always set out to be an entrepreneur, to be a leader? Was that something that was in your blood, or did you grow into that? Let's hear a little bit about it.
Sure. Since I was a teenager, I knew there were these flashes of leadership, even before I knew who I was, right, and what skills that I have. I knew I had that innate ability within me, but not in terms of knowing that from the get. Absolutely not. I was actually born in New Orleans, raised in the Metro Detroit area. I moved there when I was about 10 years old. Both my parents were on their third marriage, so I understood how that was in terms of dealing with different homes and the issues that come with that, and learning and growing through that. And moving across the country when you're 10 years old, right when you're starting to get your roots, that had a lot to do with my early self-esteem and that kind of stuff. So no, early on, man, I struggled to figure out who I was. Like a lot of us were out there, to find that confidence, find our voice, find our place in the world. Luckily, I had a very supportive mom during that time who made sure that I was good, talked to my coaches. I was very active in sports. I played 6 or 7 different sports throughout growing up. So that helped, having that team mentality and people that I could really rely on. But through that, man, had a typical kind of regular Americana Midwest high school life, playing sports, got a little bit of trouble, luckily stayed off that track, and I was smart enough to not stay on it. So after that, I ended up going to school. That's another story we can go into, the reason why I worked for Entre and why I'm not anti-college, but best believe you need to be careful before you make that commitment, because I've been to 4 colleges through my tenure, and 2 of them don't exist anymore. They are no longer around and they've been debunked. So it's, again, part of the reason why I'm here. Fast forward through some soul searching, eventually realized the military was what I needed to kind of get my life on track, just for base discipline, understanding that camaraderie and really working as a team, that service of others, that kind of that vibe. I needed that instilled in me. And that kind of catapulted me to where I am today, honestly. Through my 30s, became a leader, worked for the same company. We started a few locations, mom and pop, to a multi-state, 20+ unit operation. I was one of the main leaders to help grow that company. And I'm happy to say, when you put your head down and get some stuff done, eventually you can turn around. It doesn't matter how you feel. When you have results, that can take you very far in life. So perseverance can take you a long way. And then eventually we can talk more about how I found Entre, the company that we're associated with, and what that did for me. But that's been kind of my the apex of my growth, man, really finding this company and what I've been able to do for myself and in turn for other people. It's been a life-changing experience by far.
That's awesome. I my mom jokes around that I was a perfect child until I hit 14. And then all of a sudden I did find that darker side. And it's really interesting because I always had a level of discipline, but I let it go for a bit. And I also refound that in the military. And so it's really interesting to hear you say that, hey, I kind of noticed things were a little astray, and that there were some core fundamental skills that, adults and even adult men should have. And I don't really have them right now.
Yeah.
So where do I go get them? And for a lot of our veterans, you included, it's the military, right? Not every story that I hear is a joyful one, but I always hear that most veterans wouldn't go back and change it for a thing because of the characteristics that they built inside of them, that grit, that toughness, that
100%.
discipline, right? And so it's really cool to hear you say that. So 20 years inside a leadership role inside of this company, you helped scale it. Tell me a little bit about, what were some of the roadblocks that you hit? So staying somewhere for 20 years anywhere that's dedication, that's loyalty, right? What were some of the roadblocks you hit, and ultimately what made you stick it out for 20 years?
Just to clarify, with that one company, it was actually, I say 10 plus. It was about 12 years with
Okay.
the same company, but I was in the restaurant food service leadership manager role for 20 plus years in all different kinds of fields. Anything you could think of.
Okay.
In terms of that one company, which really was a huge chunk of my formative life, you know, it was my mid 20s leading my 30s, and the military was right in the middle of that. So keep that in mind. So, but this is what happened. You know, I was in my mid 20s, and I say this with complete humility, smart enough to realize I was jacked up and I needed some help. And at that point, it was really just finding a decent job and to work. You know,
Mm.
this is a whole other story you can ask if you'd like, but I had a free ride to Louisiana State University, where I was from, through my dad's pension. Went there, survived a couple semesters, ran home with my tail between my legs. Full honesty, you know, I was not
Yeah.
ready for that cross country experience. So anyway, come back, trying to find my life, spent a lot of time in a basement playing a lot of WoW, World of Warcraft, and that kind of thing. But eventually found this company really just on a whim. It was a delivery job that led into 6 months in. Holy crap, you know how to run a register without being trained. You want to be a manager? That was kind of a mistake. Got salary early on, was making less money, took a pay cut. Long story short, after a few years, I realized, and this is really important for veterans, anybody here who might be lacking confidence, I realized that there were some skills that I did have. So you got to do a really honest inventory of who you are. It's one of the most important things.
Mm.
Remove your ego and figure out what you're good at and what your weaknesses are and bring those to the table. So I did. And eventually, I alluded to something I said earlier, you know, after a few years, I'm like, okay, I can lead people. I have an ability for people to follow me, and I'm magnetic. I have charisma, even though I don't feel that way. I was starting to figure out what my success character was. And I'll talk more about that in a minute when we talk about Entre. But I started to form that guy, that superhero version of myself that was really making an impact. A lot of young people coming through, 17 through 22 years old, the old version of me, trying to figure out who the hell they were in their place in life. I helped them find that, man, for dozens and dozens of people, to the point where I still, years later, still connect with them, and they're giving me testimonials to grow my future. Anyway, so that was great. Ended up becoming one of the main people in the company, one of the main drivers to help us grow. And this is the takeaway and kind of the end of this story. You know, they kind of called me the fixer. I'd move around, fix locations, find out what was wrong, instill the right people, get rid of the bad apples, that kind of thing. But there was one thing that I think is the most important in terms of where you're going to land. Even if you're an entrepreneur working for yourself, you got to make sure you're this guy or girl. And then whoever is leading your company, eventually you cannot escape that. You know, the doo-doo rolls downhill. And eventually I was done ducking and diving and not admitting to the fact that my owner was not a great person, was a bit unsafe, you know? So that led to me leaving that company. I could have stayed there. We were about to be part ownership, a handful of us, but in good conscience, with integrity, I couldn't stay there. But in terms of that 10, 12 years, man, it radically changed my life about instilling confidence, realizing your potential, and also realizing what you lack as well. That was an amazing experience.
That's awesome. You know, and I'm sure a lot of people watching this right now or watching this on the replay can kind of attest to that. Number one thing that a veteran deals with coming out of service when they first hit civilian world is the loss of identity, a loss of purpose, right? Not understanding like who I am and where do I fit in the world anymore. And to me, it sounds like, you know, you kind of went through a very similar thing, but you used the military to figure that out. Where on the opposite end, a lot of us, we kind of forget ourselves for a minute. Have you ever run into that before, where
Yeah.
it's like you're like, oh wait, I had all these great things, now they're gone, and it's almost like a loss of identity. And what I have found, and I would love to hear your input on this because you've worked with a lot of people in helping them find their dreams as well. You know, what I have found is that it just takes reminding them of that greatness to ultimately start driving them forward to using that greatness. Have you found that as well?
100%. And I love what you're saying. It's kind of what I'm helping build and instill right now in our company. We are fickle beasts. We are creatures of habit, and habits can be broken. And a lot of times, what we think about needs to be fostered by other people. We've all heard, as entrepreneurs in this world, you are the result of the 5 people you spend your time with, right? So you got to be really careful about that. If those people are raising you up, helping motivate you, and I hesitate to use that word, but in this case, it fits. Helping have some kind of external motivation to remind you how great you are, what you're capable of. That's why true leadership is so important.
Mm.
True leaders do that naturally by fostering an environment of accountability, which doesn't mean you're going to always feel good about it, but you trust that environment. And that in turn, when you have those faltering moments where you're not sure or you need that reminder, you're going to have that voice behind you automatically say, I'm good. You know, when you face hardships and you are on that wheel of consistent reminding either of yourself or your environment, it makes those bounce backs so much easier. And to respond to one thing you said about the military, I was not deployed. I am not Rambo. And I must say, I did work with and train with a lot of amazing people like yourself that did get deployed. So I take nothing away from my service. But I did experience that coming back, Chris. So I talked about this at Impact very briefly, you know, with a group of my friends, my gaming buddies, very nonchalant, just made a comment about it's really tough being back in civilian life. Even someone like me, who, you know, the scale from 1 to 10, experienced the military, maybe a 2 or a 3, as opposed to people yourself that were really in it and, you know, was a big impact in your life. I still dealt with that merging back into civilian life. So all of what we're talking about will make that easier, and having the right people around you, like yourself and OVF and the right kind of community, is so important to get those reminders.
Yeah. Something else you just mentioned there is like driving really hard in my head right now. And so I'd love to hear your opinion on this, especially after our last week together. You know, one of the things that I think is missing in today's society, especially in the business world, and we're going to touch on culture here in a minute because I know that's a huge topic for you, is that everything needs to feel good. Everything needs to be sugar-coated or made easy for everybody involved from the top down, right? Even the person who's learning. But what is your opinion on this? Can someone learn without being honest with them, open and honest with them, and giving them true feedback? What is your opinion on that? Do you think that growth can come from our current setup, or does there need to be more real feedback?
2 things. One, yeah, there can be growth, but that growth can be like a tumor that is going to take years to remove and get out of there, and might be your demise. So that's the important thing. Now we're touching on true leadership, and this even ties into parenting and things. When you are having some kind of influence over someone's future, it is your fiduciary responsibility to talk about the business world, to tie it to kind of business a little bit. It's your responsibility to make sure they're equipped to face the world, right? So when you're always feeling good, and I'll relate this back to an amazing book that helped me become the manager and the person that I am. It's called The 1 Minute Manager. Not a plug, whatever, just great book. Go check it out. And it's very short read, and the gist of it is you need to balance the praises and the redirects. And there isn't some arbitrary, 50-50 balance, but they need to come hand in hand. If they don't, you create a false sense of security that when you are faced with any other environment than the one that was created, you are not equipped, period. That's one reason why the military is great. That can be taken to an extreme. You're put in really situations that you might never face, like myself. I never went through any of that combat, but I was trained in it, right? But more practically for real life, you need to find people, including yourself, for your own growth and the growth of those around you, that will be completely honest about. That's why I started this, man, having that honest inventory with yourself. And if you don't, that growth and that tumor I talked about, the most dangerous thing is when you create your own. You create that cognitive dissonance or the inability to hear new ideas, and you become kind of sheltered in your own ignorance. And it's really dangerous, man. And for vets, a lot of us can relate to this. We can get down that rabbit hole and be kind of insulated by that vet mentality. And same thing, you get in the real world and it doesn't quite create a synergistic environment, which with that comes your battle buddies, your family being honest with you, and you being honest with yourself. It's really important. So you need both, man. You got to have full accountability.
I love that. And I'm in complete agreement with you there. There has to be, I think I keep getting Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich and then How to Win Friends and Influence pieces. I've read them so many times, they're like melded together in my mind.
Yeah.
But there's be lavish in your praise, but shorten your judgment. I believe it's like something along the lines is what he says there. But I believe being lavish in your praise, but being brutally honest in your feedback is probably one of the best ways to truly empower another person rather than enable or coddle someone, right? And I love that you went there with it, because inside of OVF, we have like a kind of a more of a military mindset, right? Being all veteran. for the viewer watching, I know you guys everybody might not understand that, but for us, it's no sugarcoating things, right? So like when someone messes up, we're not going to like beat them down and be brutally, an a-hole about it, but we're going to let them know, hey, that was not effective. Here's why. And this could be more effective. Try this, right? It's a much more, but if they don't accept that, if they're not open to that feedback, which is brutally honest, then it doesn't work, right? And so I love that you went there.
Yeah, I got to mention something. When people can accept this, especially parents, because you always want to make sure your kids feel good, right? But that's not important. When you can understand that you are actually doing a disservice to that person by always making them feel good, it'll change your thought patterns with that. Like, okay, do I want them to feel good? Or this is the point. When you're not there and integrity is their decider, what decision are they going to make? Are they going to feel good in the short term or no? Because you've instilled in them that medium to long-term growth, they're going to buy in for the long-term choice. Like that's really what true leadership is, when you're not there and the magic is happening. I said that like 10 times today. It's so true.
I love
Seriously,
it.
that's great.
No, and that's it. I love that. So, you and I, we got to know each other quite well. And both of us, I believe, have a similar mindset when it comes to community and loyalty and culture, ultimately. And so when I first found myself again after the military is because I attached myself to a culture, a company that was bigger than me, that I found people within who aligned with me. Not everybody, but I started finding people who aligned with me. And one of the things I find really fascinating about your story is, much like myself, you started as a student because you wanted to learn and better your life. You excelled at it. You love the culture. You want to be more a part of it. Let me ask you though, from your opinion, what about the culture was the buy-in for you? I know what mine was, but I want to hear from you. What did you see? Like, you showed guy on the internet, don't know him. But what about it resonated with you that you were like, okay, I'm going to give this a shot?
This is a no-brainer. And I've told the story a bajillion times, and I thoroughly enjoy it a little bit more every time because I take a lot of pride in it. It's not a point of contention or a bragging point. I'm not going to float off here, but still makes me very proud. So I wasn't and this is back in the early part of 2020. Really, the end of 2019 is when I kind of discovered Entra and the company, and then a few months later is when I said, okay, I saw another ad. But anyway, I wasn't in a rock bottom place, man. I had built up that success carrier and that better version of me that was, on this kind of trajectory. I wasn't quite rocket ship supreme, but I was getting there. A lot of confidence. I was building that up. And I saw an ad, and I alluded to this already. And it's at the point of all of this, why I'm here, why I've been so kind of explosive and with culture and whatever. I really believe in, and this is important. Now, from this point on, anybody listening to this and recording or live right now, I'm going to talk a lot about how this can apply in your entrepreneurial life and help you grow your business or your brand, whatever you're doing. It's really important. So think of it with that lens. So I already told you about some experiences I had with a prior leader. I'll just leave that there. But seeing, and a lot of us have felt this as students, seeing the genuine nature very, very early on, at the very front end with Jeff Lerner, the founder and chief visionary officer of Entra. He's a great friend of mine, brother of his family. They're like family. But seeing that beginning, like, okay, and mind you, I'd seen all the other stuff before, flip right through, not a big social media, gnat and sitting on there. But I saw this one day, and initially it was that trust, that there's something about the demeanor. I'm not being sold. There's a genuine nature about what you're doing. And fast forward to the end of the story to give you the secret. The world is craving organic, natural, real engagement. Not being sold, not Lambos, not wads of cash with a cell phone. Okay. Right, so let's carry on. So finding that, initially that was the thing. And then I stuck a pin in that, like, all right. And I mean this a bit joking facetiously, but like, all right, let's see how long it can last. So eventually, even with going through the sales process at that time, which was a long time ago and so different than it is now, I'm in the department. I actually manage that department now. It's, fast forward ahead. But realizing, even through some bumps in the road with my personal experience, and this is important for you guys, I always remember Jeff and the founder's vision, his voice, his mission, vision, and values, what he stood for. And that has been my torch and my battle axe every single day since. And I'm getting to a point with this. So going through, becoming a student, diving all in. This is important too. The content needs to be awesome that you're producing so that people want to dive in, right? And it was amazing. It was a lot of great live videos, great content, literally changing my life. Started to change my whole health and got back into military mindset with my health and fitness, getting up with the sunrise and all that, posting videos every day that I never did. Side note, the first video I ever posted was the most ridiculous thing you ever heard. I repeated myself like 3 times when I said, screw it, posted it, changed my life. Fast forward 6 months of doing that, getting a little bit of a following within Entre. I was just doing my thing, just being a student, doing the work, right? Eventually, Jeff caught notice, the founder of the company, caught notice, and I had become a real student. I started down the affiliate marketing path, learning those skills. But eventually, and you guys can probably tell, I'm kind of my own person, do my own thing. I've created my own podcast, which normally you do kind of towards the end, right off the bat. Obviously, like you mentioned, doing the gift of gab. Apologize if I'm long-winded, but I try to think there's some value in this. But started my own podcast, was getting my affiliate thing going. Monetization was happening. Like I was on it 100%. And Jeff saw that to the point where, getting to the end of the story, I got so lucky. And sometimes, luck is when, preparation and opportunity connect, right? It's not just some woo-woo thing. So I'm sitting there one day after 6 months of doing this, and it was a random day. Long story short, Jeff went live. I was the only one on there, and asked him verbatim, what would be the best advice you give for someone who wants to work for Entre one day and help spread the Entre mission as far as possible? He gave me, and this is important, when you're in the leader of a company or people look up to you, you can change people's lives in 2 minutes. I have it recorded on my desktop right here. I look at it. I showed it to someone today. 2 minutes of do your thing. You're such an inspiration. Go create your own business. Imitation is the best form of flattery. Go be free. I love it. I was like, holy crap, inspired my life. Again, my point with all this is kept reinforcing who he was in the beginning. He cannot be fake. It's got to be real. Income needs to be a lagging indicator of success. Yeah. Outcome needs to be at the front. So eventually, the end of the story, kept doing my thing, all in even more after that motivation. And he called me one day as the first student to ever join the team and offered me a job as an enrollment advisor, as a salesperson, enrolling future students like myself. Since then, did that very, very well for about 6 months, like very well, not to brag, but I did great. Very organic kind of enrolling and selling. Eventually became the manager that I am of that department and wear umpteen different hats within this company, among several different departments. And the moral of the story is, now that I'm inside, I scaled the castle walls. And think about this as you're building your business, right? People can see through those cracks, and long term they can crush you. But I still believe more than I ever did in what we're doing, in my ability to help this company, in what Jeff and Adam and our founders stand for, and the direction that we're going. It's been growing ever since. There's been no lack. So I know that was a long-winded answer to your question, but a lot of this belief base, really diving in and trusting your leaders, so important to grow a good business. And I haven't even really touched too much on the culture side, but that was a macro of why culture is so important. You got to have it.
Yeah. And I love the answer. Anybody who's been watching my show for a while or following my journey, you guys know I've been doing this quite a while now, several years. And, companies come and go, and they always have. And I've worked for several of them along the years. And, you do your research if you ever want to know what those are. I'm not bringing them up. But when I was introduced to Jeff Lerner, who Jeff just mentioned, Adam Whiting, who's the other founder of the company, and got to meet them for who they were, it blew my mind. And that's kind of a rare thing. I've met a lot of really, really successful business owners, especially inside the world of digital sales and marketing. It's not a very big circle. We all know each other. And the integrity of those two gentlemen really stood out to me. I originally worked on the personal growth and development events team. And I have never seen owners of a company be willing to put themselves in the trenches and work on themselves with their company, with their students, with people who pay them to be there, and truly take that charge with integrity the way they did. And so I will just second what you were just saying, and saying that I have also personally witnessed that is a huge difference when it comes to those two gentlemen, their vision, and what Entre Institute stands for. It's there is no other company or vision like it that exists today. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that although a business takes bottom line, money coming in, scaling, those are all great things. We all want them in our business. The student, ultimately the individual, the entrepreneur, who we call the student, comes first. And I think that's, I wouldn't think of a better place for OVF, myself, you, those of us who are really trying to make a difference in the world to be aligned with. Right?
Absolutely. You just read my mind. I'm thinking how the team where we met and the events that we're a part of with this company, even that coupling with us and Todd and his amazingness and his 25 plus years doing this thing, and that's another thing, the whole area, what we just talked about was great leadership, really believing in your people, serving down, not up, all of that kind of stuff. But when you do that, things naturally start to gravitate in the right direction for you. It really is. When you're, as an example, I came to Entre to make an impact in people's lives. I still have a lot of things I'm going to be doing yet. I just got started, but that was my goal, not making money. And that is why I've had the rise that I've had. It's been amazing. I 4X'd my life in a matter of months. And, I get asked the question often, and I'm sure somebody might be thinking this if they hear this, but, why did you stay on the entrepreneurial path? Because it's something really important. I've learned this a lot recently, even with some stuff I've been absorbing, but everybody, you have to believe in what you're doing, right? Everybody, you run your own business, you're a one-man show, one-woman show, you got to believe, but there's also a level of that. And the more you really believe in what you're doing, not only, and I want to talk about this for a second. If people have heard of motivation before, I hate that word. Motivation is a joke. The motivation, it's a fallacy. If you think of it like motivation that you can run out of, it's a fuel tank. Don't think of it that way, because then you use it. Oh, I'm out of motivation. No, that's not what I'm getting at. If you really believe in what you're doing, kind of like we talk in the military, once you get to 40% of where you're at, you're not done. You still got 60% more in you, right? That same kind of thing with this. If you really believe in what you're doing, if this is something that you want to do to change your life, make an impact in your world, in your family's world, create a legacy for yourself and your future family, like this really takes that level of commitment and buy-in. It's not drinking from the Kool-Aid. It's not being culty. It's really buying in and dedicating yourself to do this, and not to make money, to leave a lasting impact on the people that you encounter. It's just that simple. If you do that, the money comes, the success comes, whatever that means to you. I think me and you are pretty good examples of that, right?
Yeah. No, it's most people have the equation backwards, and you that's the real equation, right? It's not chase the money and results will come. It's you chase the outcome, chase the result, and money becomes the byproduct. And the result, the outcome is to empower, uplift, and better other people's lives, right? So I love that, brother. 30 minutes goes fast. We're at 32, but I would hate to get off the call with you without discussing your take on culture and why it's so important.
Sure. I'll be brief. Yep. I don't know. I want to respect your time and the time of the audience, so I'll be quicker. Maybe I can come back, man, for round 2. And
oh, absolutely. But let's leave them with culture.
Yep, I will. And I talked about this. I'll send you a little message. I'll try to sum up with that and leave a little cliffhanger here. Culture is the business. I'll say that again. Culture is the business. So much is focused on your P&L sheets, market demographics, picking your niche, that kind of stuff. When you create the right kind of culture and you believe in what you're doing, it's a lot of what I've been talking about. You got to start with that belief. You can't fake it. Culture can't be fake. You can create an environment where you can get the framework for culture, but if it's not fostered every single day, those reminders like we talked about earlier, it doesn't really exist. So I'll leave with this. Really take a look in the mirror. Are you the kind of person that a future person that comes to you would want to follow? Do you have that kind of really, sit there quietly? And that's one of the biggest problems. We've talked about this is man's inability to sit in a room by himself quietly and just think. So do that and really think about if you're the kind of person and your mission, your vision, your values can even create the kind of culture that can create a long lasting business. I'll leave that there because there's a whole lot more to culture, but I can't stress it enough. It's something that does create, foster, and helps maintain the long-lasting legacy of whatever you want to do. And I'd be excited to talk about that for round 2.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely dive much deeper into that in round 2. So one last thing. Anybody watching the call right now, anybody watching on the replay, veteran, civilian, patriot of our amazing country, whatever it may be, if they're interested in stepping out into the new digital world, understanding how the new digital economy how it works, maybe even specifying in affiliate marketing, because you and I cut our teeth in that. What advice would you give that person who may be looking at it, not really sure about it?
Two things, very similar. Yeah, in essence, the time. One, I've already alluded to this whole time. It's so important. You got to be honest with yourself, right? Don't pretend you have skills that you don't. Really think about what you're good at and what impact that you've already had in your life that you could use again, right? That's number one. Number two is very simple. I talk about this too. We talk about this a lot in Entre. Is not giving up, right? Having that firm belief that you are going to succeed. It might take a while, but always remember why you started and don't give up. That's the best advice I can give.
I love it, brother. So first off, I just want to say thank you so much for your time, all your wisdom. It was great to kind of just chat with you a little bit, share you with the audience. Very excited to have you come on for a much deeper dive on round 2. And hint, if you guys want to hear Mr. Jeff speak, we may or may not have something coming up this summer where you could hear even more from him and other amazing veterans. So stay tuned for some more interesting information on that. But again, brother, just thank you so much. Immense gratitude for you taking the time out of your day to jump on, share yourself, share your journey, share your wisdom. And again, dude, just can't wait to have you on again. So thank you.
It's been an honor. Again, thank you for having me here. And you're the man, Chris. Look forward to talking to you again.
Appreciate you. And for you, the viewer, you guys are here live. Thank you so much for your engagement. Michael, Sam, everyone who's out there right now, guys, thank you so much. If you are watching this on the replay, make sure that you drop a comment below. Again, the social media team that I have running the YouTube channel are amazing. They'll make sure that you're well taken care of and that I'm informed on everything you guys drop and talk about so that we're all in the same conversation together. If you are looking for a copy of the DD214 Secrets book, which is the OVF's flagship product, the 5 steps you need to really start locking in your life post-military, go ahead and grab yourself a free copy. It's down in the description. But other than that, guys, thank you so much for being here. Drop your biggest takeaway, smash that subscribe button. We'll see you guys next week for another interview. Have a good one. Peace.